The classroom buzzed with noise as the teacher. The classroom buzzed with noise as the teacher, Mrs. Davis, cleared her throat, trying to get everyone's attention. All right, class, settle down. It's time for our final presentations on my future. A wave of groans and nervous whispers filled the room. Most students had spent weeks preparing, their presentations filled with dreams of becoming doctors, lawyers, and engineers. But in the back corner, a boy named Leo sat quietly, his hands clasped on his desk. He never spoke much, and when he did, his words were soft and hesitant, often drowned out by the louder voices in the class. One by one, students went to the front. They spoke of prestigious universities, ambitious career paths, and the bright futures their parents had planned for them. When it was Mark's turn, the class clown and a notorious bully, he swaggered to the front. I'm going to take over my dad's company. Obviously, it's all set. Some of us are just born for success. He shot a smug look toward the back of the room, directly at Leo. A few of his friends snickered. They always picked on Leo for being quiet, for being different. Te kale, im silent Leo, a name that stuck more than he'd ever admit. Finally, only one name was left on the list. Leo, Mrs. Davis called out gently. It's your turn. As Leo walked to the front, a few students started to whisper and giggle. What's he going to talk about? How to be invisible? One mothered. Another chimed in. Maybe he dreams of being a mime. Mark leaned over to his friend and said loudly, this is going to be good. $10, he just stands there and says nothing. The laughter grew louder, a wave of ridicule washing over the quiet boy. Leo reached the front of the class, his eyes fixed on the floor. He took a deep breath, the sound barely audible over the jeers. He didn't have a fancy slideshow or a poster board covered in pictures. He just had a single, folded piece of paper in his hand. He looked up, his gaze sweeping across the faces of his classmates, their smirks and mocking eyes meeting his. For a moment, he froze. The laughter seemed to echo in his ears, each chuckle a tiny pinprick against his confidence. He could feel his resolve crumbling. But then, he remembered the long nights, the endless hours spent studying while his family slept. He remembered his grandmother's words. Your voice matters, Leo, even if it's a quiet one. Make sure it speaks your truth. He clutched the paper tighter. His truth. That's what this was about. Not about impressing them, but about honoring his own journey. He unfolded the paper, its crinkles sounding like thunder in the suddenly quiet room. He began to speak, his voice still soft, but steady, clear, and filled with a conviction no one had ever heard from him before. My future, he started, isn't about a specific job title or a guaranteed path. It's about a promise I made to myself. He didn't talk about money or fame. He talked about his passion for astrophysics, for understanding the vast, silent universe that mirrored the quiet space inside him. He spoke of the hours he spent at the community library, devouring books on quantum mechanics and cosmology, topics his classmates couldn't even pronounce. He described his dream of mapping unknown galaxies, of contributing to a field that asks the biggest questions humanity has. He talked about wanting to build telescopes, not for profit, but for public access, so kids like him, from neighborhoods like his, could also look up at the stars and dream. He explained complex theories with simple, beautiful analogies, painting a picture of the cosmos with his words. The classroom, once filled with mockery, fell into a stunned silence. The students weren't just listening, they were captivated. Mark, who had been leaning back in his chair, slowly sat up, his arrogant smirk replaced by a look of confusion, and then grudging respect. When Leo finished, there was no applause, just a heavy, profound silence. He had bared his soul, and his classmates didn't know how to react. Mrs. Davis had tears in her eyes. Leo, she said, her voice thick with emotion. That was extraordinary. Leo simply nodded, folded his paper, and walked back to his seat. The silence following him like a cloak. The bell rang, breaking the spell, and students began to file out, many of them stealing glances at the boy in the back corner, seeing him for the first time. The next day, as students gathered in the hallway before class, the school's mail carrier arrived with a stack of letters for the main office. It was college acceptance season, and the tension was palpable. Everyone was waiting for the big envelopes, the validation of their hard work. A little while later, the principal's voice came over the intercom. "Could Leo Johnson please come to the main office?" A murmur went through the crowd. Mark immediately seized the opportunity. "Ooh, Silent Leo's in trouble," he announced. "Probably got a rejection letter so bad they had to deliver it in person." His friends laughed, but the joke felt hollow this time. Leo walked through the potted crowd and down the hall. When he entered the office, the principal and Mrs. Davis were standing there, both of them beaming. On the desk was a thick, crimson-bordered envelope. The return address was unmistakable: Harvard University. The principal handed it to him. "It came by special courier this morning. We thought you might want to open it here." Leo's hands trembled as he took the envelope. This was it, the culmination of everything. He slowly tore it open. Inside, the first word he saw was congratulations. He didn't need to read any further. A wave of relief and pure, unadulterated joy washed over him. He had done Italiano. He had actually done it. Mrs. Davis hugged him, and the principal shook his hand firmly. "We are so incredibly proud of you, Leo. We knew you had it in you." As Leo walked out of the office, holding the letter, the news had already begun to spread like wildfire. He stepped back into the hallway, which was now completely silent. Every eye was on him and the crimson letter in his hand. Mark stood frozen, his mouth slightly agape. The boy they had laughed at, the boy they had dismissed and belittled, was holding an acceptance letter from one of the most prestigious universities in the world. Leo walked past him, making eye contact for a brief second. There was no triumph in Leo's gaze. No "I told you so." There was only a quiet, dignified confidence. In that moment, the entire social dynamic of the school shifted. The students realized that true success wasn't about being the loudest person in the room. It wasn't about inheritance or popularity. It was about passion, dedication, and the quiet, relentless pursuit of a dream. Leo had taught them that the quietest voices can often have the most powerful things to say. He never had to raise his voice to be heard. His actions, his determination, and that single letter from Harvard spoke louder than any words ever could. And from that day on, no one ever called him Silent Leo again. They just called him Leo, the boy who was going to show them the stars.